I am joined by Mike Thomas, Nationals finalist in Yu-Gi-Oh!, also known as Trishula TTV, an amazing Yu-Gi-Oh! Player on both Master Duel and in the TCG. He is here to rate some Marvel Snap cards. Now, his familiarity with the game is limited to, as far as I'm aware, pretty much just the last time he did this, so we're going to run through the rules of this game and of Marvel Snap first. First things first, the game, you can choose to approach it however you want. You can say, oh, I think this card is a 5 out of 5. I think this card is a 10 out of 10. You can rate on a 10 scale if you want. You can also rate on a binary thumbs up, thumbs down scale. Doesn't really matter to me. The point is to get at why you think the things you think about these cards. Yu-Gi-Oh! Very different game than Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap, of course, turn limited. There are 6 turns in a game of Marvel Snap. On each turn, you get 1 additional energy, starting at 1 on turn 1, all the way up to 6 on turn 6. Whoever has the most points at the 3 locations in Marvel Snap will win the game. Now, I do believe that you remember at least a little bit about the vanillas, but just in case you don't, the vanilla 1-drop has 2 power, the vanilla 2-drop has 3 power, the vanilla 3-drop has 4 power, the vanilla 4-drop has 6 power, and the vanilla 5-drop has 9 power. Finally, the vanilla 6-drop has 12 power. That should give you about as much of a baseline as knowing what the vanilla stats are in Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is to say, not very helpful at all, really. It really has a lot more to do with the text on the cards and has very little to do with the stats. But the stats do matter, but the text on the card is going to be pretty important as well. So, with that diatribe out of the way, Mike, Trish, how you feeling about this? What do you expect?
I don't know. The last time we did this, I fumbled my, what was it, like Doctor Professor X or something? I just psychically divined whether or not cards were good.
That did happen,
So
yes. That is exactly what happened. You thought a card was a different card, but guessed it correctly anyway. That did happen.
So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Anything can happen in this one. I just hope something like that happens again. That was awesome.
I'm glad I think that you can take the humor in your failures, because this is a series that is designed to create them. Let's get started with Nocturne, a 3/5. Cool. You can move this once. When this moves, replace its location with a new one. Now remember, Marvel Snap has 3 locations in your average game, and I don't know why I said average there. There's no way to have a 4th location. There are 3 locations in every game of Marvel Snap. You win by having more points on 2 out of the 3.
I don't know. This thing, I'm just gonna immediately say that this card seems good. Because it has, I think it has higher than the vanilla stat, right? Because you said the vanilla was a 3 cost for 4.
That is correct.
So that looks overstated to me. And then we put text on it. I remember move was good the one time we played this game.
Sure.
Moving cards was good. And then it also switches locations. I know that there were some bad locations and there were some really good locations. So either turning a good location into a less good location for the opponent seems good, and turning a bad location into maybe a decent location also seems good. So I'm just gonna say good. I'm gonna what's the most annoying scale that I could rate cards on? 1 out of 7?
Sure, yeah, let's do 1 out of 7. That sounds great. What is this on a 7 scale?
I would say that this is at least a 5.6, maybe a 6.3.
So this is actually just a 7 out of 7. This is a solid 7 out of 7. The perfect 7 out of 7 on that scale everyone uses out of 7. So this...
Okay, perfect.
One thing that I think is really important about Marvel Snap, and I wanted to see if you had any input on this kind of theory in Yu-Gi-Oh!, is that I think a lot of card gamers know the concept of card advantage or value trading, getting something for nothing, right? One thing about having a move internal to the card where it just happens for free is that if you're losing the location you played this to, your investment is not invalidated. You get to put it somewhere else and still get the value out of having those 5 points on the board. And you have full control over that. So it's effectively a card with massively low downside, because if you played a normal 3/5 or whatever, Well, that if you lose that location, that 5 points didn't matter. But if you play this and you lose that location, that 5 points will matter at another location. And I was kind of wondering if there was something similar to like this sort of virtual card advantage concept in Yu-Gi-Oh.
Did you do research before you asked this question?
No. Why would I do research?
Okay.
Have you met me?
I unfortunately yes. Um,
What?
this no, that's we do kind of have that concept. It's not really like discussed, but it's definitely part of Yu-Gi-Oh! And it's actually like one of the most important concepts for the current format that we just entered into, like this national championship, the one that I got second at.
Oh, you got second at a national championship? I hadn't heard.
Yeah. Did you know? Did you know that I got second
Nice.
at the national championship for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game?
I hadn't heard. Anyway, please continue.
Second, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the idea with this new format in Yu-Gi-Oh! Was we just got these cards called Fiendsmith cards, and they're really powerful cards.
Okay.
And they all revolve around light fiend monsters. Like you get into them by summoning a Link 1 monster, which if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh! Link 1s are very powerful. That requires 1 light fiend. Now, if I tell you that every deck in the game plays this, you're going to be like, wow, every deck in the game is a light fiend deck. No. Nobody's playing light fiend decks. You can go into this engine by summoning a monster from your extra deck that is a light fiend. So Yu-Gi-Oh! Has things called link monsters.
Oh,
right?
And you free roll that, and then that starts your combo engine. I get it.
Would you believe they also gave us a generic light fiend in the same set?
I would in fact believe that. That does seem believable to me. That's actually like, again, like the way you phrase that does bring up the Nocturne comparison, because it's like, I think if you showed someone who never played Marvel Snap before, hey, this move card is in every Marvel Snap deck, they'd be like, oh, wow, so move is good? No, it's not. This is, though.
This is exactly. Like, and the thing, the other part too, like it hits on both sides of it. So it's that, but also like what you were saying is the investment isn't lost. So like if you've ever played Yu-Gi-Oh, you know, like hand traps and stuff are like, you're trading them, right? This is a format where you want to be playing a lot. Like I think most main decks are playing like 20 right now, so more than half of your deck at least is hand traps usually right now. But because link monsters just require X number of monsters, a big part of the format is you play a dude with a good effect that they have to interact with. And you're like, okay, I lost that effect. But you actually get to preserve it as a link material. Like the body is still value for you,
they interact
even if
with
it
the
did
effect,
nothing.
And then you free roll the resource that is the other half of the card. That makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you get into those Fiendsmith cards, like after you bait out some interruptions, then you go into the Fiendsmiths, and then you just start playing.
Okay.
Because all you need is 2 bodies.
For the record, that's like so much my impression of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is like you do all this stuff and then you start playing the game. Like, just like, here's all this stuff we gotta do first, but then maybe we'll actually play the game.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is definitely, it's almost like football. Like it's a lot of sitting around and doing nothing until somebody just runs away with it.
Sure. Okay. So no, that analogy plays for me. All right, solid. Let's move on to the next card.
Perfect.
Just looking at her, huh?
So
I don't blame you. A lot of people feel that way about her.
Feel what kind of way?
She, I think invariably across the board, this is the card that has the most like thirst comments per 10. If like,
I was
on a YouTube
really
channel.
Debating whether or not I should make one.
It's kind of a thing. It comes up a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. So on that front, 10 out of 10 or 10 out of 7. Sorry.
Sure.
I'm still thinking on if it's good because like okay, let me talk you through my process.
Right.
The
would
Trish
be advisable.
Theorem.
Yeah. That is the show.
So on reveal is like on play, right?
Yeah.
So if I remember how Marvel Snap works, you don't like you play the cards at the same time, right?
Right.
And
So the
then
way
you
it
both
works
flip them up.
this is the thing, right? Whoever's cards are flipping first will determine how this card plays. So you have like
Right.
if your cards are flipping first, she will pull the thing they played last turn.
Last
If your
turn.
cards are
But if
flipping
you're going
second,
second,
she will pull the thing they played this turn.
right. So I feel like there's ways to make this card very bad. Like if your opponent knows or suspects that you're on this card, they can play around it. Like this is a card that inherently is balanced by the fact that you can play around it. But it does seem like she has decent stat. No, I think she's regularly statted, right? 5'9" is like the
5/9 is
vanilla
the
stat,
vanilla,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, so she has vanilla stats. That's okay. You can play around her, so she's okay. Um, but she does have the ability to disrupt the opponent by potentially pulling stuff to weird locations. So I think that she's not like unplayable. Like she seems playable. I'd put her somewhere in like the mid range. So like maybe like a
Right.
3.75, maybe like a 4 out of 7.
I think a more accurate rating would be like a 1.5 out of 7. This is yeah,
Really?
she's actually just kind of bad. And it's not necessarily that she's like literally unplayable or anything like that. It's just that
Isn't 1.5 out of 7 unplayable tier?
it's unplayable in the sense of like no one would ever play this, but it's not
Oh,
unplayable in the sense of like you legally can't play this, right? Where it's like there are basically
that's
like
fair.
10
That's
5
fair.
drops you would play before her, which makes her unplayable relative to her peers, right? Like there are a
Yeah.
billion better options that you would play in any deck that would ever even consider this card. However, because it is like vanilla plus and like people make their way through Marvel Snap's collection process at different rates, it is not like the world's most unplayable card. It's just the world's most there are better options than this card, which makes it unplayable. There's just so many other good things to be doing at this spot because in Marvel Snap, your expensive cards, you don't really get to run a lot of them. You get like
Yeah.
maybe a couple 5 drops in a deck. And so you have to make the most of those spots, and she is never, ever, ever that.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense. But like would?
Uh, yeah, you're really
What?
breaking the mold here. I don't think I've ever heard anyone be like, "Wow, Arrow's hot" before. Never heard anyone say that ever. That's
I'm truly an innovator.
yeah. Hydra Bob, 1/5. After each turn, this moves if a player snapped. Switches locations if a player snapped.
I'm gonna just ask one ruling question.
Sure.
Like I think I already know where this card is.
Right.
But I'm gonna just ask a ruling question just for
Mhm.
my own sanity. Can it move to the opponent's board?
It cannot.
Oh, okay. Well, that takes it from like -7 to like maybe -3.
Yeah, no, this is just like it's just a 1/5, but like if someone snaps and doubles the stakes, it moves.
This is terrible, right?
A little bit better than terrible, actually. Like, it's not terrible, terrible, I think. Like, this is a card that has some legitimate upside, and I'll tell you why. First of all, 1/5, way beyond vanilla stat line. That's like two and
Yeah,
a
like
half
the stat
vanilla
line's
stat.
crazy.
Stats are
Stat line's
ridiculous here,
crazy.
right? But the way it works is you can use this with your snaps to like get onto locations you can't play on. And then if your
Mm,
opponent is going to snap and try to move it back, you can just fill up your locations so it can't move back. And so there's like some real upside for a card like this in like various types of decks right now, which I'm not going to name because they might bias you in future guessing here. But like this
you've
is a
learned since
card
last
that I
time.
have had people play. Like people have played this card against me and it has been good. I'm not saying he's like the greatest card of all time, but he's not -3. He's probably like, if we're going on the 7 scale, like a 3.5 out of 7. Like, this is a card that exists and I see rarely, but occasionally in some specific archetypes.
I guess that makes sense. Like, I guess too, yeah, like you could also just play it on like the last turn just for like a
Yep,
free 5 stats for like one,
big
and then they
number.
can't snap because like
Oh,
it's the last turn, right?
you can snap on the final turn of the game and he will move, but that's public information. Like if they snap and you play him, you know he's gonna move, so you get to just sort of plan around it, right? You
Oh, right. But you get to see if they snap before you play
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
right?
you
Yeah,
get to
yeah,
see
yeah.
if they snap, and so like if you play him and then they snap, you can just there's an undo turn button. You can undo your turn and go redo it, knowing that they've snapped, right?
I
And so
see.
you get to have a little more information than you'd think. I put this on here because I think I tried to get you with Martyr last time, and I was hoping you'd be like, oh, this is just the second Martyr. It's the same. It's the bad 1/5 that sucks, but it's better. It's definitely better than that card.
You definitely got me with that. I don't remember Martyr, but like anytime I see a one drop with just a ridiculous stat line in
Yeah,
any
you're
card
just like it
game,
has to be
my
terrible,
immediate
right?
it has to be awful. Like there's no way they printed it. And sometimes they're good. And then it's like, why did they do this?
Marvel Snap's one drops have this problem where it's very hard to make a one drop that has a meaningful effect on the game
Yeah.
because of how. And so like this card was originally released at 1/4 and it was like that not
Oh.
very good. And so they made it a 1/5 and it's just like it really demonstrates just how hard it is if you're going to make a one drop in Marvel Snap. It has to be like really big in order to actually matter because of the way the
Yeah.
game ends up playing out.
Needs to just be broken. It sounds like Yu-Gi-Oh! If you want it to be playable, it has to be broken.
It's not like that, but I think one drops feel that pressure more than anything else
Yeah.
because like my theory with one drops is basically the reason it's like this is because things scale in such a way that your average like 3 outclasses your average 1 by so much that it's like you didn't
Right.
even play it. And so you devoted a card in your deck to that one that gets like massively outclassed. He is an
Yeah,
attempt
yeah,
at solving that, I
exactly.
think.
That's interesting. Like it's also cool to see like some of these new cards that like didn't exist when I played this game like last year. Because you guys get new cards like pretty frequently, right?
Once a week, actually. Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah. I
Yeah,
mean,
so
it's
like
one card a week, but yeah,
that's still like every week the meta might change. You
correct.
know, like that's cool.
Yeah, Man Thing 4/5 ongoing effect, meaning perpetual, just happens everywhere that this card is. 1, 2, and 3 cost cards at this location have -2 power.
Ben Brode still works on this game, doesn't he?
I actually don't know, but like probably.
This looks like a Hearthstone card. That I'm
Are you?
getting
You're just saying that
form.
it no, it
It
physically
looks like
looks
a four
like
mana
yeah,
seven
it's the four
seven.
sevens. It's
It
Flame Wreath Faceless, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like if they
yeah,
had put 7 power on this, I would have just
right.
like it would have had to have been a joke.
With one hit, it
Um,
is 7 power, right? If you hit one to one of those cards, it is effectively a 4/7.
yeah,
Yeah,
there you go.
there you go.
Yeah, they printed it again.
Yep,
He can't keep getting away with it.
he has gotten away with it.
Um, man, okay, so ongoing like stat reduction. I feel like am I crazy or is there like a card that does this effect better that was in the game like a year ago?
No,
Like,
no,
no.
no, not this at least. This is a pretty unique effect hitting specifically small stuff.
Right, no, but like one that didn't have like the stat line. Like, hmm. Ah, okay, here I'm like inclined to say that this card is good. Like just actively good because if your opponent's playing a deck that has lots of like lower costed dudes, this could just like roll that.
It
Because I
could.
remember that there was like some I remember there was like some deck where like squirrels or something where you filled up a location with squirrels and like that could just devastate a location that has a bunch of like little dudes on it. Especially if you're saying that like 3 cost dudes are like really good. And like I remember What was it? Sentinel? Was that the 2 or 3 drop that like cloned itself?
That is Sentinel, yes. You could be thinking about
I don't know
Mr.
if that card's
Sinister, maybe? Sentinel is the one that
no.
adds a copy to your hand. Mr. Sinister
Yeah, no,
creates a
no,
clone on the
that's the
board.
one I'm thinking of. That's the
Okay.
one I'm thinking of for sure. I don't know if that card like sees play at all still, but like I remember that that was a thing. So just something like that, like just trying to hit a deck that's playing lower costed dudes, even if it doesn't exist. Like I could see this in the future maybe being good too. I feel like it's a good card for the card pool. I don't know if it's meta right now, but like it seems like a decent card in the card pool.
I need that on a scale of 7.
I'll go with like a 4 point, I don't know, 6.5 out of 7.
I think it would be a little more fair to go like 2.46 here for
Oh,
a man
okay.
thing. My scientific process has arrived at that. Basically, this is a card whose problem is that it is not always applicable, and that because it is symmetrical, you have to go through a lot of effort to make sure it's not hitting your stuff too, whether that just be playing it on a location where you don't have any stuff
Mm.
there, or going through like playing cards that prevent it from affecting your stuff. One other thing I would tell you is like since the last time we did this, the metagame is vastly, vastly different. I don't know if I would rely on anything you remember from the last time we did one of these videos because the cards you mentioned, not a thing. The
Huge.
decks you mentioned, not a thing anymore. They're not things are not
Huge.
like that. So Man Thing is just sort of a it is the kind of card where it's like, oh, it's nice to have this around, but fundamentally the value prop of this card requires too much investment and situational things from you to make it worth playing on its own and to make it worth including the package in your deck. There's usually something better you can do with your card slots.
So is there ever like a future where this card is good though?
I think it would have to be a very inbred and warped metagame for that to be ever happening. I do not think there is like a realistic future where this card is good. It's the kind of thing where it's like theoretically possible, but functionally would probably require a buff.
I see. What do you think that buff would look like?
If this card were a 4/7, you could probably just run it and be happy with it.
I hate you.
Like, I'm just saying, if Ben Brode still works on this game, if this card were a 4/7, you could probably make it happen.
I hate you so much.
Maybe it could restrict your energy the next turn. A mechanic, maybe call it overload, something like that. I think that would be plausible.
Yeah, I see the vision. I
I'm
see
glad.
it.
I'm glad.
I see the vision.
I'm glad. This is Gwenpool, a 4/6 with an on reveal ability that picks a card in your hand randomly and gives it +2 power, and then does that 2 more times.
Um, okay, I feel like I've seen this pop up on my Twitter feed
Yeah, she
because
just
of
came out.
you. Okay, okay. I wasn't sure if it was because it was broken or if it was a new card.
New card.
Okay, cool.
I mean, I won't
Pick
tell
a
you if she's
random.
broken or not, obviously, but yeah, new card. This is the season pass card in the month we're doing this.
This was also a Hearthstone card, I'm pretty sure.
Probably.
Um, yeah, this is almost certainly a Hearthstone card. I can't remember. This was like it was something from like early Hearthstone
Yeah, they did a hand buff
where
theme in the gang themed set. One of the gangs was themed after
yeah,
hand
like
buff.
Gadgetzan, which is around like when I started playing Hearthstone. So like I remember this stuff. Like it was all the like it was the thugs, like they all buffed
Yeah,
themselves like in hand.
the hunter warrior
Um
ones. Yeah, hunter warrior paladin was hand buff themed.
Something like that, yeah. Um Here's what I remember. Those cards were bad.
They were
They were very bad. So I'm inclined to say that this card is like 20 out of 7. Like
like
they're
just
trying to
super
do it right.
busted, the most
Super bust.
busted.
It's this card's terrible, isn't it?
I didn't say anything. Is that your final answer? 20 out of 7?
I don't know. My final answer is either this card is like
No,
insane.
no,
I
no,
think it's
no
like 20 out
ethers,
of
no
7.
ethers.
All right, I'm gonna say this card's broken. It's like 20 out of 7.
Yeah, no, that's like pretty close. I mean, it's more like a 7 out of 7, but this card is really damn good. Like this is just
Yeah.
a card that is extremely, extremely generically strong. where it like one of the issues with hand buff is they made like these hand buff cards and then these hand buff payoffs, and the hand buff cards weren't good without the hand buff payoffs, which made it really finicky and hard to make work, right? And so they
Yeah.
put like minimal stats on a lot of the hand buff cards because the payoffs were so potentially strong. And so it made it sort of play out a little bit more like a combo deck. With Gwenpool, you have none of that issues. She has just like your baseline vanilla stats, but also she is doing this. And so it's like,
Yep.
oh, you get to free roll that. And if you hit one of those things that's like a good hand buff target, it's broken. But if you don't, it's never bad. This card is basically just like never, ever, 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 ever going to be a bad option. It's just always, always at least pretty damn good, and sometimes very, very strong.
Especially because stats mean everything in this game, right?
Yes, they are the only thing that matters.
Yeah, like that to me just seems broken. Like that just seems so good.
It's a very, very good card. It's a little bit overshadowed right now, but I don't think that's like anything to do with it, just had to do with metagame context. And even in the like context of it being overshadowed, it was in like 2 of the 3 best decks on my tier list recently. And so it's like she's just great. She's just a good card.
Yeah, she's also riding a Vespa, which means that's awesome. Like
Her
great
actual
card.
power in the Marvel universe is that she's fourth wall aware. She's literally supposed to be canonically a person from our world who is in a comic book. So her superpower is that she has read the wikis of everyone she fights, and so she knows their secret identities and weaknesses and is thus able to fight them.
That's awesome.
She
I love
rocks.
that. That's awesome.
Thena. After each turn, +3 power if you played exactly 2 cards.
This has to be one of those like meta context things, because like here's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
What I remember about this game is that your what do they call it? Is it mana, energy,
Energy.
like what energy? So you have a fixed amount of energy every turn.
That is correct.
So what I remember you taught me was that you mostly want to play on curve, like for the most part, because you want to get the most efficiency out of it. Which means that you're probably not playing a bunch of little cards. Like you're probably playing like increasingly mid-range cards, which means that the only deck that I could see Thena going completely crazy in is in a deck that plays a bunch of little costed stuff, or that generates a bunch of like little costed cards.
It's interesting you bring that up because I'll save this for after the rating, but I do want to remember that. That's a really interesting point you brought up.
Yeah, it's like I could see this like okay, so every turn gain +3 power if you play exactly 2 cards. I could see this effectively being a 2/7 that you have to invest into over turns like 4 and 5, right? Like 2 drop, 2 drop, 2 drop, 3 drop, or something like that. So like that doesn't seem horrible, but you have to invest in it.
She is investment
And
heavy, yes.
I don't so like without the meta context, knowing if there's like a deck that does that, like I don't know. She seems like above average, but I feel like you have to build around her. So like, she's probably not meta defining, right? I'll put her at like a 5 out of 7, maybe a 4.
Okay, so here's the thing. She is meta defining.
Oh
When
my
we
god.
talked about like playing cards on curve, a lot of that was because that's where you get your most efficient stats. But it turns out it's totally fine to not be as efficient if you're getting a free 3 power every turn. Because that's where you get
Mm.
even more efficient stats, is getting that free 3 power, right? And so this card is like very often 10 power and would be 13 if you weren't deliberately trying to avoid a card that blows up things that are 10 power. So she is the core of mid-range decks in Marvel Snap right now. She is the thing you do. They are
Ah.
built around her. They succeed because of her. They work because of her. And it's because she is such a large, massive 2-drop that you are able to do so much in order to make that happen. Now, a lot of that is because there is a card that you can play, and then it comes back to your hand. It costs 1 and it gains a power.
Uh,
And so you effectively get to
ah.
do, Thena and then that card, and then you're playing 2+1 on 3, 3+1 on 4, 4+1 on 5, 5+1 on 6. And that, when you're getting the free power on Thena, it's just what you do. It is the most efficient points engine in the game.
Did that card exist
Yes.
a year ago? That sounds familiar.
That is Kitty Pryde.
Yep, there it is. Yep, okay, I remember that.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense now. And then there's like the cloning tank location too, right? Like so you get 2 of them every turn or something like
You
that.
wouldn't really
And then
want
that
that,
just
but
goes
it
crazy.
can happen, yeah. There are better things to do on the
Okay.
Vats. Like, Vats are like a location that is like famously like skewed for certain decks. So, like, yeah, it's not
I
bad to
see.
get Thena on the Vats or anything like that, but like you can almost always do something like there's a decent chance your opponent's going to be able to do something even stupider, is the thing.
I see. I see.
Havoc. After each turn, you lose 1 max energy, and this gains 4 power, a 2/0.
What?
All right.
I'm this card actively mana drains you?
Yes. But +4, though. 4.
I'm sorry. So okay, so functionally you only gain 1 power energy every turn,
Yeah, so
right?
functionally, the turn you play this, that's how much energy you have the rest of the game.
Right. So this card either comes out on 2 and it just ramps up to 16 on one location and then you lose because they just play on the other 2
It
locations.
ramps up to 20 for the record.
Oh, my bad. It ramps up to 20 and then you lose because they played on the other 2 locations.
Yeah.
Um, or this card comes out at 6 and is a 4 stat.
Or, 5, 8, 4, 12. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's bad.
You're gonna be correct about that. I'm not even gonna ask for a rating on the 7 scale. That's about right. This card has seen
Bad out of 7.
Yeah, bad out of 7. Fair enough. It's seen some play. It required like some very specific context to make that happen. Like just like a variety of cards that had to exist in order to supplement it and have it be the correct choice. But there was a time where Havoc was arguably in the best deck in this game. It was, like the 12th best card in the deck, but it was in the deck and it was good in the deck. That has happened. It's a rare occurrence, but it has happened. Since then, it has basically gone back to being generally wildly unplayable. The way this card is typically played is it's on 5 to get 8 points.
Right.
You can do that. You can make sure that doesn't happen by supplementing with cards that give you energy or cards that discount your other cards, and then it just becomes like a fairly efficient beater. And that's a reasonable role for it for sure. But generally speaking, it's not a card you're going to see a lot of.
So there is like mana ramp in this game now.
Yeah, there's like several different methods of mana ramp actually. It's just that like the ones that
Is there any way
typically
to go over 6?
Oh yeah, tons. Not like
Oh.
necessarily permanently, but I mean there
But like
are
for a
ways to go
turn?
over 6 permanently. There are ways to go over 6 temporarily, and typically the temporary ones are actually the ones that get played with him because the way that card plays out plays a little bit similar to what you want to be doing with this card anyway.
Oh. Oh.
So it's like you play him on 5, but you actually still have 6 energy on 6 because of the other stuff you did.
That makes sense. So bad out of 7, right?
Oh yeah, definitely still bad out of 7. Don't get me wrong.
Okay. 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 Perfect. I love him.
Just on site.
He's
Okay.
great.
Okay.
He's great.
Okay. He eats your
His name
deck.
is Blob.
Yeah, it's the Blob. He eats your deck. He merges cards from your
Merge.
deck into him until it gains 15 or more power. Now, the gate here is Marvel Snap has 12 card decks. So by
Uh-huh.
the time you are playing this guy on turn 6, there are typically only 3 cards left in your deck, unless you have some way of altering that.
What's like the biggest statted dude in the game? Is it like
20.
20? Yeah. All right. So we play the Blob and we play the 20 cost. We don't draw the 20 cost.
Yes.
And then he first RNG hits the 2 not 20 costs that are
Yes.
left in your deck. He gets like 14 power. He eats 2 7
34.
attacks. And yeah, he's a 34. This card's like 34 out of 7. I
Oh,
love him.
okay. Blob actually is good, but mostly in the context of there being cards that make your deck size a little bit larger than it normally would be, right?
Okay.
So, like, there are some cards that do that. He only really sees play in those decks. It makes it a little hard to
Mhm.
call him a good card because he is, and he's meta relevant generally, but he's a very hyper specific type of guy where it's like this is
Yeah.
only doing one thing and it's an important thing, don't get me wrong, but he ends up having like some weirdly specific utility for a card that reads as strong as he is. He's actually pretty limited in scope but powerful in that limited niche.
Does he gain their effects
No,
too?
god no.
No. Well, it says merge. I don't know.
Yeah, they did that because they didn't want him to like destroy. Because if he destroyed those cards, it would be busted with some
Uh,
other stuff. So they just made him merge instead. He's just eating them. But like it's really just like I think that's just like a balance thing. Because if he said destroy the cards in your deck and then gain their power, that would be really busted. Because there's a card that's like this has the power of all destroyed cards, and then you'd effectively just have
oh,
two blobs. It'd be like, oh, that's kind of busted. All right, we can't do that.
that seems great. They should have done that. When do we get the gobble keyword?
The gobble keyword. Wow.
Yeah, gobble. Like it just blob effects.
Right. We just change merge to gobble. That seems appropriate to
Yeah.
me. Maybe they'll do that for the
Oh, is he the
Thanksgiving
only card that
patch.
says merge?
Yeah, it's the only. No. There's other cards that merge into other stuff. As far as I'm aware, this is the only card that merges other cards into it.
Okay. So they could have made it the gobble keyword.
If they had wanted to, I suspect they could have keyworded this gobble.
Okay. Okay. Can you can you use that now, like on stream whenever you play him? Just don't jiggle him. What are you doing?
Look at that. Look at that guy.
Gobble, gobble, gobble,
He's
gobble.
moving.
The blob. I'm gonna gobble your deck.
I've done a
Yummy.
cosplay of this guy. That was a
There's
sub goal
no
reward. I
way.
did a cosplay of the Blob.
God
That's
bless him.
that's my guy.
There's no way,
That's my guy.
dog. I love that. I love that. That's awesome.
This is Mockingbird. 610 costs one less for each of your cards in play that didn't start in your deck.
This has to be good. That reads like a Hearthstone card. That has to be good. I love how every time we do this, I don't use any of my Yu-Gi-Oh knowledge. It's all Hearthstone. It's always a Hearthstone card.
That's so sick. All right, 7 rating.
Yeah, this card's broken. Like I think that there was a card in Hearthstone. They had to nerf it dramatically. It was like I don't remember what it was. It was like a 7 mana 5/5 or something that like
Corridor Creeper.
discount.
You're
Is that
talking
that's the
about
one where
Corridor Creeper. It got
and
one
they nerfed
cheaper
it
for
to a
everything that
2/5?
died. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and they nerfed it to a 2/5. Yeah,
In the dungeon,
yeah,
I
this
go
one's good.
deeper. In set reviews, I was a sleeper. Yeah, yeah,
Yup.
Mockingbird is really good. Mockingbird is
Yeah.
actually, yes, busted out of 10. Would you believe that she actually just got nerfed and she used to cost 5?
Yeah, because they did that to Corridor Creeper too.
No,
Yeah.
she used to
He
be a
can't keep
5/9.
getting away with
She
it.
used to-
That bro can't keep getting away with it.
He has once again gotten away with it. Yeah, no, this card is and has been like a top 5 card in the game for since she came out, basically. She is absolutely unbelievably strong and an extremely potent piece of a lot of decks right now.
Yeah, that tracks. All right, I feel like I recognize this one.
That's
This
weird.
one's
How could
troll,
you
right?
possibly recognize him? He's
I
Mysterio. He has no face. You can't recognize him.
True. I think you asked me about this guy last time.
Oh, okay.
I
I'm
think
trying to remember what that would have
either
even
that or we
been.
lost to Mysterio, like against the MTG player that we played against in Twitch Rivals.
I think it was that actually. I think it
Yeah,
was that.
I think we actually lost to Mysterio.
Yeah. So how good is he? For the record,
Well, we lost, so it
yeah,
has
obviously
to be
he
good.
must be busted.
Like
We could never.
it has to be busted.
We could never lose to bad cards. That could
This
never
card was
happen.
if I remember correctly, this card was troll AF. Like this card was Giga Troll, and like the weird deck building requirement like just led to them running it. But like I think this card is troll, right?
Out of
Unless
7,
Tech W out of 7, I think, is about where
right?
we're at, unless
Okay.
something has changed.
So this is like kind of an unfair one to give you because
I don't know.
there's like a bunch of specific things to Marvel Snap about why this card is really good. And they relate to cards I've actually already shown you. So do you remember Mockingbird from 2 seconds ago?
No.
Okay, well, Mockingbird discounts for every card that did not start in your deck.
Right.
When you play Mysterio, until the final turn of the game, he counts as 3 cards that did not start in your deck. I'm not done. Do you remember Gwenpool? The card that buffs the cards in your hand?
Don't tell me that because the stats change, they count as different cards.
When you buff Mysterio, he also buffs the clones. So one Gwenpool proc turns this guy from a 2/4 into a 2/10. 2 of them, and he is playing a 4, an 8, and a 4. So we really kind of like use all the parts of the Buffalo with Mysterio. He is. I
understand.
Yes. There's like some really weird interactions that happen with this guy, but basically those are the 2 main ones where it's like if you hit 2 Gwenpool buffs on him, he's obscenely busted, and if you don't, he's super discounting your Mockingbird. And for some reason, he counts as 3 cards played, which makes him good with other cards that count the amount of cards you play in a turn. There are several of those.
Oh, like Thena.
Actually, no, not like Thena, because he counts as 3 cards played. He doesn't actually go well because we.
She's exactly my. Yeah, bad.
She's exactly 2, right? So like. Thena, actually, there's a little bit of anti-synergy. They still sometimes end up in the same deck because some Marvel Snap decks are just, I'm going to jam all the good cards together. And that's obviously
good stuff.
Genius deck building, right? Like, well, who would not do
I
that?
love good stuff deck building. Just put all the good cards
all the good cards. And yeah, like right now, Mysterio is definitely one of those cards where this is just like a generally extremely powerful card that we manage to use every single weird interaction that he has to do something stupid. And that's our guy, Mysterio.
I see. That's awesome.
He rocks. Have I shown you this one before?
I don't think so. Look at what your opponent did, then restart the turn?
Indeed.
This card is either the best card ever printed or absolutely god awful.
Reasonable read.
So this card does literally nothing.
Yeah,
like this card
literally
does nothing.
I don't know if I would say literally, but I see where you're going with that.
Okay, it neg ones to do nothing. Like we play this card, and then we unplay this card, but put him in the graveyard. Like this is Toon World for Marvel Snap. But we get the slightest inkling of what our opponent wants to do.
Mm-hmm.
The way I would evaluate this is that at higher level play, you know what your opponent's going to do anyway. So he does genuinely nothing. But I could see the use case being like, you aren't certain or you want to confirm if they have a card in their hand so that you can try and play around it. I could see that being like a genuine use case. So I'll put him at a 3 out of 7 because I don't know which direction the 7 is. He's either -7 or +7. And
yeah,
I don't know which one it is.
He's -7. You had it at we are neg oneing ourselves to do literal nothing. You are correct that at the high levels of play, we already know what's actually happening here. It's not worth discarding a card to do that. It's not worth using a slot on your deck to do that. Everything you said about him was right, except the number that you gave him. which is actually the thing that matters. Great job.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. I failed the test. This does remind me. This will be the shameless plug. So, have you heard of Alestrals?
The card game that MBT talks about sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
the A Drive game, the Pokemon YouTuber card game.
Yeah.
Um, so that game is great. That game's awesome. I gotta teach you that game. That game's fantastic. Um, but there's a really funny card in that game that I love. Like it's one of my favorite cards. It's called Titanostock.
Okay.
It is a 1/5 or no, it was a one. I think it's a 1/4 that I think you can expend one. So like the spirits are like your both your health and your mana. It's kind of a cool resource system.
Okay.
So you can like effectively spend a mana life to look at your opponent's hand, and that's it. That's it. And 1/4 is like slightly like it's a defensive body, but 5 is the defensive body that you want. So it's slightly weaker as a defensive body.
Is there a way, like, are there cards that key off of being low in mana life?
No.
Ah, okay. Well, then.
Not at least not in its like element.
Hmm.
Um there's like one card in the game that wants you to have like wasted some spirits, but that's not an earth. Like he's an earth guy. Um this card is terrible. Like it's like one of the worst cards in the
I was
game.
gonna say, like, that doesn't sound very good. Like,
You want to know why it's one of my favorite cards in the game? It
because the
was
game is so.
nerfed.
Oh, I was gonna say because the game is so new that you actually getting that information might be good when there's not actually a meta.
No.
It's not even that.
Because the meta is like really standard
Damn.
because like the card pool is so small that like there's not a lot of choices to make. So there's not a lot of stuff that you can play around right now. Like
Okay.
it's they're moving into the third set, so it's starting to expand like pretty rapidly. But like the but this was a base set card. Like this was in the first set. And in the first set they nerfed it before like final production. Like so from prototype it got nerfed. Because this card used to be analogous to a Yu-Gi-Oh card called Ceremonial Bell. So it used to be a 1/5, which is a normal defensive stat line. And it didn't have to spend mana life to look at hand. It just like look at your opponent's hand. Like your opponent plays with their hand revealed, which is a Yu-Gi-Oh card as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
Is
that's
0/2000.
ridiculous. Yeah.
Yeah, it used to just be like a 0/2000 from Yu-Gi-Oh. Look at like your opponent plays with their hand revealed, which is still just terrible because like you should be able to assume what is in their hands since there's
I think that actually sounds.
very
I guess maybe you should be able to assume, but I think in Marvel Snap that card would actually be pretty good.
yeah like it would be like but it's just so funny to me that they nerfed that card because no one would play it even if like you wouldn't play it even if like they hadn't nerfed it and then they nerfed it and it's like why bro he's just goofy like just let the goofy guy like be good let me
I
play
gotta say,
him
yeah, no, like I think the like the cube system in Marvel Snap really raises the utility of information in a meaningful
yeah
way. Like when you look at like there are cards that can be played just for information. Like Daredevil shows you what your opponent's gonna do on turn 5, and that's like a borderline playable and functional card, right? Kang, on the other hand, is making you discard a card to get a potential. It's not actually you know what they do. You don't know what they do. You know what they did, and they could then change it up. And that's sort of the issue with him. Is like there is a world where
yeah
this kind of effect is there's room for this thing for information to be leveraged in Marvel Snap, but this is not how you want to do it.
I have a very specific question.
Okay.
The week that this card came out, like the day this
Yes.
card came out,
Everyone thought he was broken, yes.
and people started like making terrible plays on turn 5 because they expected you to Kang, and then they would like undo and then do their real turn. Did that
That was a
happen?
thing that happened, yeah. Like, or not
Yeah.
necessarily terrible plays on 5, but usually you'd play him on 6, right? Like, just because he says 5
Or
is
yeah,
good.
like they would whichever the Kang turn is, they just
Yeah.
troll and then like you don't play Kang and they lose.
Yeah, it wasn't optimal, but yes, that has happened. I played against someone recently, actually, who was playing Kang for fun, and I played Loki, which got me their deck, and I snapped on turn 6, and they thought it was Kang, so they didn't play any cards, and that was not what it was. So they were like, I know it's Kang. I'm gonna look so cool when this happens. It was not Kang. They just did not play any cards, and they lost the game. And so, like, yeah, that is a thing. That is a thing.
I knew it. I knew it. I love cards like this. That's awesome. I love that.
Moving on
Oh, this is
into
cool.
Silver Samurai. An on reveal, each player discards the lowest power card from their hand.
Huh. I mean, hand looping is good. Like, I like hand loops.
What do you mean hand loop? That's not a
Like,
terminology
you
I'm
hand loop.
familiar with.
Oh, you just rip a card out of the opponent's hand. You're
Why is it
looping
called
them for a
loop?
card. Like you. Because there's sometimes cards where you just do it over and over. And
Oh,
over
yeah,
again.
no, there's I mean, I guess you could make that happen in Snap actually, but like
I
it's not
think that might be
inbuilt
a
to the
Yu-Gi-Oh
card.
player thing.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Because like we've stopped just referring to I think that there was like a period like years ago where like the only decks that discarded cards at all ever were decks that discarded like your entire hand. So like if you didn't so if you didn't get it all the way, like if you only partially remove their hand, it's like, well, I only hand looped them like 3 or 4 times instead of
That's
like
I get it. I get it. I
5.
get it. I get it.
So at some point that just replaced the word discard. I don't know when it happened, but like it just replaced the word discard because now like it's just we hand loop people.
Yeah.
And I've heard it in other card games now too, but
Never heard that before in my life.
I think that that's just like Yu-Gi-Oh bleed over.
That's crazy. Yu-Gi-Oh is the coolest game on earth because they'll tell you about something that happened 12 years ago, and you're like, "That's the most broken thing I've ever heard of," and they're like, "That sucks and is unplayable." It's like
It's awesome. I love it.
it's so cool because like every time you describe like a tier 2.5 deck in Yu-Gi-Oh, all the game actions you're taking, they make it sound like it must be the most broken thing ever, but it's just like very mid. It's crazy.
Yep. It's great. Because
Anyways,
like true Yu-Gi-Oh thrives in tempo and mid-range and just like the most pure card game like trading that you could imagine. But like you can also do all this just random anime bullshit. Like just randomly if you want to. Like it's there.
speaking of random anime bullshit, Silver Samurai. I already read it out already. I don't know why I'm doing it again. I'm not doing it again, in fact.
I think the only way that this card is like good, like because it feels like average, right? Like it's like I think 5 is the right stat line for 4. Maybe that's understated.
Little under.
Yeah, I think that's so it's understated. You would think the hand effect is crazy, but lowest power card, you're just pitching trash cards that like
Or
you
Blob,
drew
but
them.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, lowest power.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was lowest energy. Hold on.
No,
Let me
no,
think.
no, no.
I guess yeah, it's if it's specific it's the tech card for ripping Blob, I guess.
I'll just tell
Um
you right now. It's not.
oh.
It's not the tech card for ripping Blob. Like that's a thing
Maybe
it
it rips
can do.
Thena. Like Thena's a 1, right?
Yeah, 2-1.
I guess it can rip like some hyper specific meta threats. So like it's good, but this is like super situational, right? Like otherwise this card just like discards a shitter.
Okay, so it's not good, and it mostly does discard shitters. I have misled you during the audio portion of this, and that is why I was doing it like that. Like I have intentionally and purposefully misled you, and now I will take a victory lap on having done that. No, this card is fairly poor. It does
Yeah.
have like they're all like the reason I brought that stuff up is because it's the kind of stuff people say to cope themselves into playing this card. And this is the kind of card where it's like almost good enough, where that stuff does
Yeah.
happen and it can be almost good enough, but it just doesn't have enough support yet. This is actually one of those cards where it's like, I don't think it's ever going to get enough support, but if it ever does, it can be good. There is a real world where this card could be good, and that could be a relevant thing to do. But I don't really get the sense that they're very interested in having a deck that discards all your opponent's cards being a very popular thing. So I wouldn't be holding my breath if I were a fan of this. That said, it is the kind of thing that if they wanted to make strong, I think they very easily could. But they have to make it strong by making the disruption a bit of a free roll, right? Right now, you're paying a meaningful cost, and unfortunately, that cost is a little bit too meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. That makes sense. He kind of looks like he has Gmail on his chest, though.
Wait. Dude, yeah, it kind of does. Yeah.
It's the Gmail Samurai.
Yeah.
You've got mail.
Yeah. Leech. On reveal. Remove the text from cards with on reveal abilities in your opponent's hand.
I didn't know that my Twitch chatters had their own card.
Is that like a dunk on your Twitch chatters like fashion sense or stature? Or is it a dunk on them like just hating you?
No, please subscribe. Please subscribe. I'm very poor.
Sure.
This card seems good. I like this card. This reminds me of Lotheb. More Hearthstone. 5/5, or it's a 5 attack, 5 statted, 5 costed, like removes effects or like stops your opponent from playing something crazy next turn. It comes down on 5, stops like broken on reveal effects on 6. This seems crazy. I like this.
It's quite good. You got most of that interaction correct, except a lot of the time it's coming down on 4. Whether that be like there are a couple specific decks that we're used to, I should say. That's when it becomes the most problematic, where this card is coming down early and then suddenly you're not actually sacrificing for it. There was a brief period where they made this card cost 4 and everyone hated it so much. Like, this was they were just like they were just like, we'll test this out. Let's put Leech at 4. And it was like instantly the best deck and everyone hated it. If there is one problem that Leech has, it's that instead of being a counteracting, like instead of counteracting combo, which is what it looks like it's meant to do, what it actually does is counteract interaction. It stops your opponent from meaningfully interacting with your board because most of the ways to do that are via on reveal effects. And so it ends up being a door slammer rather than like a combo counter kind of thing. It ends up
a Yu-Gi-Oh card.
Yes, he's a Yu-Gi-Oh card. He's like your boss monster that has like 2 negates on him. Like that's this guy. He's just like,
yeah.
Instead of actually doing something that's going to win me the game, I'm just going to say you can't break my board. And that's Leech. Like that's what this guy
He's
is.
Anti-spell. I love it. I love it. More of this.
Less of this.
More of this.
Less of this card.
More degeneracy.
We need less of this card for sure.
Please.
Agatha Harkness, 6/14. She starts in your hand and plays every card for you.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. What?
That's the text on the card.
All right, this card is definitely terrible because from what I'm understanding is you put this card in your deck.
Yes.
It begins in your hand.
Yes. You start with an extra card in hand.
Oh, extra card.
Yeah, okay. She is an extra card in your hand.
Okay, so you start with 1 extra card in your hand. However, the AI, like the Marvel Snap AI plays for you.
Yeah.
I don't trust an AI to play better than I do. This card is ass. This card's terrible.
So did you catch where I was like, yeah, like I was going to say something else but thought better of it? So there's no AI that plays for you. This card plays your cards fully randomly.
I'm sorry. Wait. just to be clear.
Yes.
It still has to obey the rules of the game, right?
But like it
fully... This is so I love it. Please play this on High Ladder. Please. It's so bad.
It is exactly the meme deck you think it is, where it's like, I'm gonna do something
Oh,
stupid with Agatha. Like, yeah, that's exactly what she's about. That's our girl.
that's awesome. I love that.
She's such a banger.
Does she only play one card a turn?
No, she will literally like randomly choose. Like, basically what she'll do is she'll be like, these are the cards I'm allowed to play, plays one, sees how much energy you have left. These are the cards I'm allowed to play, plays one until she can't play any more cards.
That's beautiful.
It's fully random. It is 100% random.
That's incredible. I love that. That's awesome.
She rocks.
I love that. Great card design.
Phenomenal. Arishem. At the start of the game, +1 max energy. Downside, shuffle 12 random cards into your deck.
This is such a bend. I know that he's working on this game because you just what were the two in Hearthstone that were the start of game cards?
Baku and Gen.
Yeah, he can't keep getting away with it, dude.
Yeah, but
You've
they
just
didn't have
shown me like
downsides.
they
They
were
just
vanillas.
existed. They were just put them in your deck and you get this.
That was the downside. They sucked.
Oh yeah, it's such a huge down. One was like a 5/6 or a 6/5. The other one was like a
Gen was
7/9. They weren't even that bad.
I think Gen was
9/7?
it was like a 5/9. Baku was terrible.
Hey, they
But
weren't even-
all the
yeah.
Baku decks are gross. Like they were disgusting. This card shuffle 12 random cards into your deck seems really ass in Marvel Snap because of how the game plays out. But at the same time, does it really matter? Because like if you just care about the stats, like just put some random stats on the board. Who cares? I think the extra energy might make it worth it. Like, no, this is S. Never mind. I've talked myself out of it. It's S.
That's crazy because this is like the best card in the game.
That's crazy.
Yeah, this is like the meta defining card at the moment.
I was on the right train of thought.
You had
and I was like,
everything
no,
right. You were saying
I was like, there's no way this is good. There's
yeah, no,
way
it's
this is as good as I
actually
think
just
it is.
super busted, right? I feel like I
Oh
gave
my
you so
God.
many hints for this one, where I talked about how like some decks play Leech on 4. Ha 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 ha. Some decks play Blob when they add more cards to their deck. Ha 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 ha. This is some decks. This is the some decks I was talking about. Yeah, it turns out that like you just get it free energy and nothing matters. you get free energy.
I was like
it's really
on that
good.
train of thought, and like I was just like, there's no way this can be good. Like, there's no way because this just seems too good. I don't see the downside.
It is really good. I don't think it's like the way you counteract it is like there are cards that scale off how many cards are in your opponent's deck. So it's beatable. Like I currently have a couple
Right.
decks where I'm like, I feel pretty confident into it. But this is like the meta tyrant. And because it's such a cool card, so many people bought it. I am fairly confident it broke the play rate for any new card. The first day this card came out, it was like 80% this card. And I don't mean like the way card gamers say it was 80% this card. I mean like the stats website that tracked it had it at 80% play rate.
Is that Untapped?
Yeah.
I love them.
Shout out to Untapped.
Yeah.
But yeah, 80%.
You got the Untapped sponsor?
They actually do. I get paid if anyone downloads the tracker from my link, which I honestly don't promote enough. Thank you for reminding me. I'll put it in the description.
Yeah,
of this video.
promote that because I also have it for Master Duel. So,
oh, sure, I can put that in. I can put your link in there. Sure, why not?
Ooh,
Yeah,
there
send
you
me
go.
your link.
There you go.
Yeah, we got it.
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, of course.
They're also great. I don't know if you've ever talked with like them directly, but they're great. Those dudes are awesome.
I have.
I love them.
So I got totally sidetracked from the card that is broken.
We do this every time. We do this every time.
This card is broken, for the record. Like it is the card that everyone will complain about. Everyone does complain about. It is the big mean baddie at the top of the metagame right now. And it is a phenomenally powerful and interesting card. I really do think that if any other card had the kind of play rate this card has, people would be so much more mad. But this card is the most acceptable card of all time to have the play rate that it does. And for the record, we're like a few weeks out from its release now. I think it's like around 40% play rate now, but that's still bonkers. Like, that's
It
still a
really looks
very large
cool.
number. It is cool.
I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I think if I still had like an account that had like every card in the game, I would probably just queue up and start playing with this because this looks cool. Like,
That
this looks fun.
is he's a legitimate banger. I legitimately like they kind of knocked it out of the park with him. He's a little too good probably, but I like it's one of those things where it's like if you have a card that everyone's going to buy, at least make it good, right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and make it good, but like also this is the thing that I love about like Ben Brode card design for these like online card games. It's just the random effects. They're
Mhm.
so fun. They're so fun.
I think a lot of people knock random effects in card games, and this goes from like lands in Magic to cards that actually say random on them in games like Hearthstone and Snap. But I think that without those effects, card games just wouldn't be what we want them to be. And I like
Yeah.
I do think that people go overboard on like, necessarily like what is the proper amount of random, but there needs to be like a pretty significant portion of randomness in a card game for it to be meaningfully acceptable to people, I think. Worse players have to be able to beat better players. And one of the things
Yep.
about Arishem is it is a playing field leveler. Like this is a card that like legitimately can reduce the skill cap of Marvel Snap. And you can beat anyone with a deck like this. It can happen because of the way the RNG can work in your favor.
Yeah, I do like cards like that, like
Mhm.
which is kind of like a taboo opinion. I think like you were alluding to in card game
Yeah,
communities, but
a
like
lot of like really good
I mess
players
with
hate
it.
it, but I like them. I like cards that do this.
Yeah, I think that's the difference between like the great players and the good players
What?
is you
Like if you're
learn to
great, you hate
accept.
it, and we're only good.
No, no, if you're great, you just learn to accept it. I'm saying that we're
Sure,
great.
sure,
We're the
sure, sure,
best
sure.
ever.
That's absolutely true. On that note, it's time to end. Mike, thank you so much for doing
Yeah.
this. Promote yourself. Tell people where to find you. Do your thing.
I'll say the same thing that I said last time, which is please don't find me. But if
Right.
you have to find me, I stream on Twitch pretty much every day at
Mhm.
twitch.tv/TrishulaTTV. Also, allegedly, I have a YouTube. I never post on it. But
You're doing great
it's
at the self
Trishula.
promo thing. That's really
Yeah,
you always lead with your strengths, right? That's what
I
you,
always my strengths.
yeah.
I allegedly have a Twitter too.
Right.
It's also TrishulatTTV. Sometimes I post funny things on there. Um,
Debatable.
Very debatable. Very debatable. Um, I don't know. What am I supposed to say?
No,
Like,
that's
how do I
pretty much
promote
it. I
myself?
just wanted to make sure you had the
Uh,
opportunity to like shout your socials out, and you instead you're like, yeah, I'll shout my socials out, but I'll also let everyone know that I hate me. And
yeah,
yeah,
I do hate me. I do actively hate myself.
I
But you want to know who you
relatable.
shouldn't hate? You want to know who you should like?
Are you about to say me,
And
please?
subscribe to. It should be KM Best. Like just scroll down a little bit, like and
Ah,
click that subscribe
awesome,
button on this man's channel.
awesome.
And while you're down there, click the funny thumbs up and like the little bell icon thing, and then go write him a little comment about how pretty what was her name? The thirst trap card. Just
Arrow,
just go thirst about that card in the
don't do that.
comments.
Don't do that in my
Or
comments.
thirst about Blob.
That
Thirst about
you can
Blob.
sure
Blob
acceptable.
thirst,
All right,
absolutely. Oh my
relatable,
god.
absolutely.
Would.
All right. Thank you so much for watching. I've been Cam Best. He's been Mike Thomas, Yu-Gi-Oh! National finalist for the United States. And I will see you in the next one.